Welcome to the advisory group's 5 points for 5 years before you retire workshop. Let's first start with some introductions. My name is William Glenn. Also joining me on this webinar is Mark Cox. The two of us are client services associate with the advisory groups. Our two primary speakers today are Brett Beverly, the president of the advisory group, and Manny Chinche, a senior advisor at the advisory group. At our firm, we partner with clients and believe an educated client is our best client. While we will always try our best to help you when it comes to your finances, we believe that knowledge is power. One of our missions is to share with clients any knowledge that can help them make an informed decision. We believe that the more you know, the more you will like what we do and how we do it. As a reminder, it is always important to review that there are 5 key areas of financial planning. They are preservation planning, retirement planning, tax planning, estate planning, and investment planning. As a comprehensive financial services firm, we try to always consider the impact of any recommendation we make on not just one, but all these areas for our clients. In this workshop, we will primarily be focusing on retirement planning, tax planning, and investment planning. Our agenda is very straightforward. As you get close to retirement, it is important to begin lining up what you are going to need. Let's review the 5 points we will cover in today's meeting. Point 1. Where will you live and what will you do? How do you dream of spending your days? Will you take time to travel and see the world? Or would you prefer to keep closer to home and pick up a new hobby? However you see your retirement, it's important to make sure your finances can support your overall goals. Have you considered relocating to a state that doesn't require as many taxes? Many retirees consider downsizing to lower expenses or plan to move closer to family to help care for grandchildren or loved ones. Overall, there can be many benefits to living closer to family as you age. Point 2. Consider your debt and taxes. Retiring to a lower income tax bracket is possible. Considering a one-time tax hit, such as selling a home or moving from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, could eventually produce a source of tax-free retirement income. But before you make any decisions, consult with a qualified tax professional to see if this move is right for you. Income and age restrictions may apply. Point 3. Estimate your monthly income and expenses. How well will you live? Your monthly needs could decline based on a lesser need for extras, but it could also quickly change based on your health or family circumstances. So estimating on the higher side could help. Let's not forget that you will have far more free time once you are retired, which leads to leaving the home, which typically leads to spending of some sort. This is what we like to call the 7-day weekend phenomenon, and most of us spend more on the weekends. Included here is what you will be spending. What is your standard of living? Point 4. Healthcare costs. Will you apply and be eligible for Medicare? And will this cover your present and future needs? It is possible you or a loved one may need long-term care at some point during retirement, and this could affect your overall bottom line. If you decide to retire when you are younger than Medicare age, and were dependent on your employment to provide or subsidize your health insurance plan, it is crucial to determine what the game plan will be as you bridge that gap to Medicare eligibility. And last and possibly the most important point, 5. How are you going to pay for it all? When that last paycheck stops, how sure are you that you are not going to run out of money before you run out of life? Your investing strategy can make all the difference. Planning for retirement involves setting goals and a defined strategy towards those goals. Whatever your plans are, make sure you have all the arrangements beforehand so you can live your retirement as confident as possible. Let's explore these points in more detail. To get into the meat of our presentation, I would like to bring up our next speaker, Mr. Chinche. Manny?
Thank you, Will. Let's start on our discussion today. Where will you live? That's probably a crucial decision you make when you retire. Now, this one question largely determines everything else that we're going to review here. Many retirees consider downsizing to lower expenses or plan to move closer to family to help care for grandchildren or loved ones. Have you considered relocating to a state that doesn't require as many taxes? Overall, there can be many benefits to living closer to family as you age. Making a move may trigger new expenses or incomes. When you need to sell a property, sell additional stock or other investments to purchase a new home, or pay for your move. All of these should be considered ahead of time to make the best use of your available funds. Many retirees look to move out of a high-tax state such as California or New York to move to states with low or even zero state income taxes. Be aware that some of these other states make up for the lower income taxes by having higher sales and higher property taxes. Will those affect you in your new situation? And finally, another area of concern for retirees is not only the cost of healthcare in their new location, but also its availability. If you purchase a hobby farm, how long of a drive is it to get good health care? Larger cities typically have more resources for advanced health care. Some retirees plan to live outside the U.S. and healthcare resources may be significantly affected. Retirees who have Medicare, especially Medicare Part C, could find themselves with severely limited choices. Now, we will discuss that further later in our workshop. Now, we hear from our retiree clients, how do I do all of this and work a full-time job as well? Now, almost all of our clients who have retired feel very busy as well as very fulfilled. Now, here's your chance to really think about all the goals and dreams that are important to you. So what will make your life fulfilling? What are those things that you have always wanted to do but just did not have the time? What trips do you want to make? One-time trips or regular excursions with family or friends or solo? Instead of collecting that paycheck, is there volunteer work you may want to do? How about your family? Are they going to be nearby or a long distance away? Maybe you want to help with grandkids or other family members, or maybe just spend extra time with your spouse. Just remember, your spouse may not be used to you having so much time to spend, so be considerate. Finally, are there community activities that you may want to join, assisting the police or fire departments or social assistance programs, such as the Community Emergency Response Team? There are a lot of things available to do. How do you make sure you're doing the things you want to do? Every retirement can benefit from a little future planning. So take time now to explore what will make life fulfilling in retirement. You may be surprised to hear that this takes some work and introspection to learn what you truly want. And please don't be afraid to ask us for a copy of my future planner. Now, where you decide to live will often be largely dependent on your debt and taxes. If you're selling a house to move to another area, you likely have a low interest rate loan locked in. The new mortgage rate is likely to be higher than your existing mortgage rate. That may have an important impact on your decision to sell your home to buy a new one elsewhere. Now, when that paycheck stops in retirement, having other debt may also affect your ability to enjoy retirement. So be sure to work with your advisors before making any drastic moves. Now, we noted that many states have income taxes, ranging from California's top rate of 13.3% down to 7 states with 0 state income taxes. Other taxes could affect you, especially depending on where you live. Income taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, registrations, and of course, other ways the government's reach into your pockets. These other taxes may be higher than you see where you are now, so investigate in advance so that you don't find any unwelcome surprises. Now, often in retirement, parents look at gifting to their kids and grandkids. As a result of the Secure Act, overall family tax bracket management is a critical area for those with untaxed retirement assets to explore each year. Now, one of your choices is always to leave everything the way that it currently is. If you're in a higher marginal tax bracket than your beneficiaries, then it may make sense to let them take the distributions after your death in their tax bracket rather than you and yours. In this case, doing a Roth conversion does not make sense. However, if your beneficiaries are in a higher marginal tax bracket than you are, then it may make sense to take distributions in your tax bracket while you can, and then to convert these accounts to Roth IRAs and leave your beneficiaries in an account that, while it must be taken out within 10 years of your death, could grow tax-free during all that time. Now, this method leaves you in control of your assets should you need them for yourself, but provides them tax-free to your heirs should you not need the funds with you having paid the taxes due at your lower tax bracket. An annual step to consider is to review your marginal tax rate and your beneficiaries' marginal tax rates every year. As I'm sure you're already aware, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was signed into law on July 4th of 2025. It incorporated a wide range of tax and spending policies to provide relief to taxpayers and boost economic growth. Now, the bill made permanent many of the individual tax cuts and reforms of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017 that were set to expire at the end of last year. For most retirees, this new law will help them in retirement. Now, to cover our next session, allow me to bring up Mr. Beverly. Brent?
Well, thank you, Manny. This is a lot to cover. Hey, in combination with where you plan to live, you need to check your incomes and expenses. How well are you going to be able to live? Are your resources sufficient to maintain that standard of living throughout your expected lives? Now, in earlier times, many retirees had as their base income a company pension. These days, unless you're a government employee or involved with education, most retirees have no fixed income except for Social Security. So something we need to be watching for. Now, most of us do expect to have incomes from Social Security. Now, we're not going to cover the decision making that comes with taking Social Security income in this presentation, especially when to start your Social Security income to get your maximum lifetime benefit. But let me take just a minute here to talk about some of the things that we're seeing in the future of Social Security. Each year, for the past half dozen years, the Social Security trustees have delivered an annual report that reminds us that the Social Security Trust Fund is rapidly being used up. They calculate that sometime around 2033 to 2035, Social Security benefits will need to be reduced by 20 to 25% across the board unless changes are made by Congress before then. Now, most of us expect to be drawing Social Security at that point and beyond, so look for a possible drop. So beyond that, Social Security income are the funds that you've put away for yourself. The first place we usually look for pensions plans that have been funded over our working years. Our 401ks, our 401(b)s, the IRAs, the simple IRAs, the SEP IRAs. Oh, there's just a welter of them. So don't forget to include your required minimum distributions and when that money needs to come out. Now, finally, we look at your other investments. Now, we'll discuss a strategy here in just a minute or two to handle the withdrawal process in a few slides. So, as you approach your retirement, consider readjusting or reallocating your portfolio and evaluating other income producing and growth investments. As you do that, though, be sure to keep in mind that your time frame is not the day you retire. Your time frame is likely decades after that retirement date. So your incomes need to keep up with your expenses, which are likely to be rising with inflation over time. So check your different incomes to make sure. Are they flat or even decreasing and losing spending power to the rising costs you will face? Or are they increasing? Are those incomes increasing? So if they are increasing, are they increasing to keep up with your needs? Now, we'll discuss this more in a minute. We're just kind of laying the groundwork here. One note I want to throw in here, though, is that while Social Security income typically increases each year, our experience has been that it does not increase at the same rate as the expenses faced by retirees. The rate, or CPI, Computer Price Index, in our experience, runs below the costs faced by retirees and their increases over the years. And that calculation does not include that expected reduction in Social Security in about 5 to 10 years. So be aware. Now, where you live may have a significant effect on your expenses. A major expense for most of us is our housing costs. Do we have a mortgage or do we pay rent? If we have our own place, even with the mortgage paid off, well, what about property taxes, homeowners association, property insurance, utilities, maintenance, repairs? There's quite a bit there, guys. So Manny already discussed how other taxes can affect you. especially depending on where you live. Things like income taxes, sales taxes, registrations, and other ways that the government reaches into our pockets. Even with housing considered, well, we still need to live. Dining at home, dining out, clothing, transportation, other supplies. As everyone who has paid the bills knows, the list just seems endless. Now, a lot of retirees look at their retirement as a chance to visit places they've always wanted to see. Many times the travel budget can be considerable. Now, we find it interesting that many retirees figure their travel budget will be high for a while and then drop off as they age. But what we're finding, in fact, is that many of our senior retirees still love to travel. The final expense we want to note, and it's a big one, medical. Not only the medical insurance and Medicare, but also prescriptions, doctor visits, and more. We want to note that many retirees also need long-term care. So what changes we see in your spending in retirement? As with incomes, the key question is, well, what's going to change? Look at each expense item here. Are your expenses flat, such as a fixed mortgage payment, or are they decreasing, such as supporting children or going away when you stop doing things that go away? Like an example of that is dry cleaning bills. Usually when you're not working, your dry cleaning bills drop substantially. The problem is that most of your expenses are likely to be rising. Protecting your lifestyle from inflation or price increases is vital. How can this be done? Inflation is a big concern when you have a long period of time that you're dealing with. So how long does retirement last? We want to note regarding your income and expenses, how long will you retire? How long will you live? Now, obviously, that's a bit of a question. So if you're going to die tomorrow, go have a wild night. Go have fun because you made it. The truth is that most people are going to live a lot longer than that, and perhaps longer than they expect. The retirement time frame starts when you actually retire. Retiring early not only lengthens the time of retirement, but it may reduce your long-term benefits. We see this most clearly when dealing with Social Security. Starting your income at age 62 gets the income started sooner, but results in a lower income for the rest of your life. The same calculation applies at any age before age 70, which is the time when Social Security benefits max out. Now that takes us to how long your retirement will last. Okay, the real question here. Especially if there's a couple involved, not just a single person. Well, how is your health? If you have stage 4 cancer, your life expectancy is probably a lot less than someone who's healthy. Think about your family history. Does your family have longevity? Is your 80-year-old father still taking care of your 100-year-old mother? Now, you might plan for a longer retirement than someone whose family all passed in their 60s or 70s. Now, given the miracles of modern medicine, I put quotes around that, the miracles of modern medicine, things that might have killed someone a few years ago now can be cured and a longer life is expected. Take a look at some statistics here. I'm sure that many of you are aware that medical advances, healthier lifestyles have increased longevity. But let's look at the bottom of this graph. A healthy couple who reaches age 65 has a 50% chance of one of them living into their early 90s and a 25% chance of one of them living into their late 90s. So we can assume from these statistics that at least one person from a couple is going to live into their 90s. However, many people do not take longevity into account when calculating their benefits and their ability to spend. Now that takes us to, what is inflation? Okay, arm, leg, both. Yeah, okay, I got it. It's simply that costs tend to go up over time. Now, an example I love to see, because I love to watch old-time movies. If you watch an old-time movie from the 1940s, for example, you hear them talking about life insurance. And you'll hear things such as, he's rich, he has a $10,000 life insurance policy. Well, nowadays it's hard to even find a policy as small as $10,000. We have clients who've lived in their homes long enough to pay off their 30-year mortgages. We love asking them, would you pay for the home? The figures they give us are typically have fewer numbers in them than the current value of the home. Somebody who has $1 million house bought it for $100,000 or $300,000 and is now worth over $1 million. That's inflation. If you've lived in your home for more than 10 years, compare what you bought the home for what it's worth today. How are you going to keep up with that? I want to note, the longer your life expectancy, the greater the effects of inflation will have on your need for income. So even though inflation is showing signs of moderating from previous years, we don't know what it's going to be long term. When Chris and I started practicing in the mid-1980s, inflation in the U.S. was double digits, more than 10%. It got up to 14% at one point. I remember when we did our retirement analysis calculations, and using a 7% rate of inflation going forward. And we had clients all upset with, how could you possibly use such a low rate of inflation as 7%? Well, guys, while the Federal Reserve target for inflation is still at 2%, we're seeing rates now at 3.8% and more. Now, even at 2%, let's say the Fed achieves its goal and inflation goes to 2%, your costs are going to double in 35 years. At 3.8%, they'll double in less than 20 years. Now I ask you, does anyone here expect to live for more than 20 years? If you do, at 3.8%, your costs are going to double. Now you know why we put that longevity chart before this discussion. Now, to make matters worse, the index used to calculate inflation is actually often lower than the costs we individually face. Now, back in 1980, the U.S. Treasury Department changed how they calculate inflation, primarily to include what they call the substitution factor. What do you mean? Well, if the price of beef goes too high, like recently, and people go, well, I'm not eating more of that expensive beef, I'm going to eat something that's a little less expensive, like chicken or something like that. Okay. Now, in pre-1980 charts, CPI would be close to double what the current figures are telling us inflation would be because of that substitution factor. What really matters with price increases is what affects you. Okay, for example, the rising cost of real estate is not really going to affect your living standard if you own and stay in your own home, but the increase in your homeowner's insurance and property taxes certainly will. Interest rates can have a major effect. Why are we worried about interest rates in retirement? Well, as we noted earlier, if you're selling a house to move to another area, you may have a low interest rate loan locked in that now the new mortgage is likely to be higher than your existing mortgage rate. Congratulations, I may have bought a cheaper home, but my loan cost me more. With interest rates so low and maybe going down further, it's hard for retirees to earn the interest needed from the less volatile fixed investments to keep up their standard of living. Bank accounts. I love looking at bank accounts. Holy cow, bank account interest is typically, they earn much less than inflation, and that's before we even consider taxes on it. A typical emotional reaction to retiring and no longer having that steady paycheck into your bank account is for retirees to say, we need to be extra cautious, so I'm putting more money into my bank account just to be safe. This is what we refer to as going broke safely. You're losing spending power each year over the long term, even though you may believe your principal is protected in the short term. What are you ending up after taxes? So to cover our next point, let me bring back up Manny Chinche. Manny?
Thank you, Brent. Now let's look at some of the additional items that you need to consider when you retire. First, let me look at the cost of healthcare. Our session today is not detailed enough to cover all that retirees need to know about healthcare costs, but we want to emphasize that healthcare is an important part of our retirement roadmap. Now, if you retire prior to age 65, you may be covered by a COBRA medical insurance package from your former employer, or you may want to get your own coverage. A lot depends on your medical condition. Once you turn age 65, you will want to elect Medicare and choose between the two alternatives. Now, we'll cover more of that in the next slide. It is reported that 64% of retirees believe that long-term care expenses are covered by Medicare. This is not true, so we want to give you a little background on what long-term care is all about, how likely is it that you will need care, what the possible costs are, and get you started on designing your plan on how you can meet those costs. First, let's look at Medicare. As we noted, there are two ways of signing up for Medicare: original Medicare versus Medicare Advantage. Pointing to the left is the original Medicare, including Part A for hospital, Part B for medical, plus Part D for prescriptions, adding on Medigap supplemental insurance. Now, pointing to the right is the alternative Medicare Advantage route, also known as Medicare Part C. Now, you have the slide with all of these slides in your meeting handout that you received from us before the presentation. We believe it's informative to read the bottom of this page. Note that Part C Medicare Advantage may be different if you move to a new location. As an example, some clients like to work with Kaiser Permanente here in California, but Kaiser is not likely to be available if you move out of state. So make sure you can find coverage you need wherever it is that you may be going. Now, we believe it's important to understand what are the hidden costs of Medicare. If your income is above a certain level, you need to pay extra for IRMAA, the income-related monthly adjusted amount. Here are the income levels where you may be affected by these additional charges. Note that these levels are what we term cliffs. That is, if your income is even $1 over that income level, you need to pay the full increased IRMAA fee. This IRMAA fee affects you even if you're using Part C Medicare Advantage. Now, how many people do you expect will need long-term care one day? It's not surprising that few of us do, because it's hard to face the fact that our health might decline. But statistics suggest that the risk is greater than most people think. Now, approximately 70% of us, that's 7 out of every 10 people here today, will need some type of long-term care service during our lifetimes at some point after we reach age 65. And though it's good news that people are living longer, a long lifespan increases the chance of developing serious health problems. In fact, to the Alzheimer's Association, approximately 14% of people aged 71 and older have Alzheimer's disease, which often leads to the need for nursing home care. 1 in 3 Americans die with Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia. And while older people are more likely to need long-term care, younger people may need care too as a result of a disabling accident or illnesses such as multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease. Now, this isn't meant to scare you, but rather to remind you that the need for long-term care can happen to anyone at any time. The need to be prepared is very real. It's something that you should not ignore. What are the costs of long-term care? Now, the cost of care continues to go up. A couple of years ago, according to Consumer Affairs, the median annual cost of a nursing home was between $85,000 and $150,000 per year. At an assisted living facility, the average cost is $51,600 per year, and the average cost for full-time in-home care is $4,385 per month. This is just the national average. You can imagine that in areas such as Orange and Los Angeles counties, the cost will be on the higher end of the range and far higher than the average. Our experience is that the cost for full-time in-home care in our area is more than 3 times that number, or over $15,000 per month. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, people who are healthy and rich tend to live longer and hence have a greater need for long-term care. If you need long-term care and have more than the government limits in net worth or income, where will you get the funds to pay for your care or that of your parents? Now, here's where the money comes from: savings accounts, investments accounts, retirement accounts, pensions, other family members, taking a reverse mortgage, and even insurance. Now, we find that most people, especially those who have not planned for long-term care, start as private payers, paying from their own pockets. So when they use up all of their resources, they end up turning to the government for financial assistance. The government won't take care of you until you are down to almost nothing. Now, in addition to the costs paid by the care receiver, there are also costs paid by the caregiver, typically your family, but often others who are taking care of you. A scary statistic is that 83% of caregivers contributed financially to the cost of care. Now, this chart is actually a measure of the ages of residents in nursing homes. While the risk of debilitating problems like Alzheimer's, other kinds of dementia, or mild cognitive impairment increase as you get older, we are never sure when we might need care. Almost 18% are younger than age 65. As we get older, the likelihood of needing care increases. According to Mr. Gresham, currently 1 in 8 people at age 68 will suffer from one of these illnesses. That figure more than doubles by the time they reach 78, and it increases sixfold by the time they are 88. Over the next 10 years, nearly 1 in 3 people now serve is likely to become incapacitated, and a great many more will be affected when someone in their life does. Now, we'll also have to be there for perhaps 3 generations of family members affected by their aging parents or grandparents' new reality. When we talk about long-term care, these numbers are staggering. So make sure you have a plan of action ready for yourself, your parents, and your children. Now let's change the subject a little bit and talk about what happens the day after you stop working and the paycheck stops. How is that income replaced? Now, to discuss this important aspect of your retirement planning, allow me to bring up Mr. Beverly. Brent?
Well, thank you again, Manny. Now, as you retire, important questions come right to your mind. Where will the income come from when my paycheck stops? How am I going to keep up with the rising costs? Now, these are the most common questions we hear as people prepare to go into retirement. Our income is obvious when we have Social Security, a pension, or an annuity that replaces 100% of our paycheck, but usually this is not the case. If there's a shortfall, then we must rely on systematic withdrawals from our investments. And when it comes to long-term investing, there are quite a few concerns to be considered. So remember, there is no perfect investment. Instead, you need a strategy to increase your chances of navigating your financial future so you can arrive at your destination safely. Market concerns, especially as you start needing income from your investments, can be a much more immediate concern than they are when you have time left in the markets for the markets to work their way out. What sort of portfolio changes can you make to help ensure an enjoyable retirement? So let's look at a few of your key investment concerns when you're starting that long-term income need. So short-term volatility versus long-term returns. We talked earlier about going broke safely. All right, you can't just lock things up in low-earning bank accounts. Interest rate changes. Well, how do they affect you? Recession concerns. We see recessions every now and then. You know, as we like to say, recessions are uncomfortable, but they're not uncommon. And then finally, diversification. As you can see from this view, those investors who focused on long-term strategy have been historically rewarded with significant returns. This chart is as of the beginning of this year. Now, what has happened in the market since then? Well, it's generally gone up since then, hitting new record highs. But even at the relative low point in April of this year, as we like to say, those investors who focus on the long-term strategy were historically rewarded with significant returns. The concern is that when you're withdrawing funds, the effect of market downturns can be devastating to your portfolio. Look at all those downturns along the way. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at 40 years or 30 years or 20 years or 10 years. Look at the ups and downs. How do you protect yourself? Now, if you attended our webinar last month on alternative investments, you know that additional diversification can help lower your long-term risks. Another way is to use what we call the 3-bucket method. The 3-bucket method of setting up retirement withdrawals helps us to visualize how our retirement incomes can be managed from a liability standpoint. Withdrawals to support our lifestyle is the liability we commit to, with our investment portfolios. Now, I'm actually going to cover these buckets in reverse order. Starting at the bottom, we've got the green bucket, the short-term or the intermediate bucket. We sometimes refer to this as the spending bucket. Now, this bucket is where we want to be pulling your income from. So it will contain largely cash, cash equivalents, short-term investments, not subject to the big market fluctuations of much significance. Now, typically, we expect to hold roughly a year of expected withdrawals within this account. When the markets are down, we only take income from your cash reserves bucket, your short-term bucket. As markets recover or look more normal, then transfers from the next bucket, the blue bucket here, the intermediate term bucket, can replace some of the money that you've used out of your short-term bucket. So as markets begin to look more normal, regular transfers from the next bucket up replaces the funds that have already been taken. So initially, those come from the second bucket, marked here in blue, okay, the intermediate bucket. And we sometimes refer to this bucket as the second tier bucket. Now, this bucket's going to focus on investments that are a little less volatile, oftentimes fixed income investments, income and growth equity, protected assets. The time frame on these investments is typically 3 to 5 years. The primary goal here is to keep up with inflation while protecting against the downside. So a little bit higher return, a little moderate volatility. Now this takes us to the long-term red bucket at the top. The investments in this portion are designed for long-term growth. Since there are other buckets to cushion any downturn, the goal on the long-term bucket is to grow as much as possible over a period of 5 to 10 years to provide the resources for inflation protection and providing incomes over the long term. Now, this 3-bucket strategy is designed to a bit of safeguard against normal market ups and downs. When the market's down, you rely on the short-term buckets to draw the funds you need. Assuming markets go up over time, as they have done, as the markets go up, you may draw from the blue and red buckets to replenish the spending bucket. You're then able to weather another downturn when that happens. Now, as I mentioned, market downturns are normal, but not predictable. Okay, this tool helps give your investments a way of handling the downturns. You never want to be in a position where you have to withdraw from the wrong bucket at an inopportune time. When the markets have taken a big nosedive, that's not the time you want to be pulling from the red bucket. Now, we like to remind you of these 4 things that can help you approach your investments with discipline and focused direction. Your risk tolerance or appetite for risk. By this, we mean how much risk can you take, or better yet, how much can you afford to take? Your time horizon, or the amount of time you want to be invested in any situation, which can help you determine your entry and exit points. Your retirement is likely measured in decades, not just a year or two. Your behavior. Market volatility is just a part of the investing experience. This can create anxiety and stress when volatility occurs. Do you know how well you can emotionally endure the potential ups and downs of your investments? They're going to go up and down if you're doing the right long-term investments. The key is to stay focused on your overall strategy. Don't get caught up in emotional investing. Are you looking at something that doesn't quite fit with your overall strategy? Perhaps the media is influencing you to make a rash or impulsive decision on your investments, whether that's putting money into a speculative investment or pulling money out of investments. Will help you overcome that short-term fear versus greed emotions that might distract you from your long-term approach to investing, to successful investing over the long term. We want your holdings to be consistent with your overall strategy. Panic can create more risk and potentially cause setbacks in your goals. We believe that long-term success comes from maintaining your overall strategy. Now, that said, past performance is not an indicator of future performance. 2026 has already been an interesting year, up and down, a very volatile year, and it's not over yet. We stand firm, though, by our mantra of proceed with caution. Please remember, we'll be watching all areas of the economy and the financial markets and the geopolitical situation, which we feel may affect our clients. If emotional investing triggers hit you, well, we're here for you to help you stay with your long-term strategy. Now, here are some of the key points we want you to take away from our review of investing in retirement. Caution is still the principal notion for investors. Inflation, while relatively low right now, continues to be a concern. Interest rates are likely to change. Market downturns are likely to occur multiple times in the future. And as a reminder, long-term investing is a key strategy when dealing with equity markets. And finally, we want to remind you that we are here to help you through the process. I rather like this saying from Benjamin Graham, words of wisdom. Now, if you're not sure who Benjamin Graham was, he's the mentor, he was the mentor, he's passed away, of Warren Buffett. So he kind of helped Warren Buffett get his act together. So we want to share these words. The essence of investment management is the management of risks, not the management of returns. This is the investment philosophy that we seek to follow when we do our money management. So let me bring up Mr. Cox, our final speaker for a presentation, to wrap it up. All right, Mark?
Thank you, Brent. I'm happy to be here today. So, let's review the 5 key points from today's meeting. Take time to picture what retirement looks like for you. Understand what debt you will carry in retirement. Meet with your tax advisor to understand what your tax picture will be in retirement and whether action should be taken now to prepare for your retirement. A detailed look at your expenses in retirement can provide you with a more accurate target. Understand what incomes you will have coming in and when. Make sure you develop a plan for handling health care, including long-term care costs in retirement. Focus your investment portfolio to provide long-term income which is tax-aware and can help protect against inflation. And, as always, nothing happens unless you take action. Don't let retirement sneak up on you. So, we've covered a lot today, and what can you expect from us at the advisory group? One of our main focuses is to review changes for our clients on an ongoing basis. You can expect regular communication, more frequent discussions, and you can expect that we are continuously reviewing economic, tax, estate, and investment issues for our clients. We then work to summarize what is important that our clients need and then do that regular communication bit that we discussed earlier. So, look for more communications as we will be offering other workshops that highlight tax changes and planning ideas. Please pause your viewing and check out these disclosures. Additionally, if you'd like to reach out to us, you can find our contact information on this screen here. We thank you for the opportunity to assist you with your financial needs. Remember, at our firm, clients come first and your health and well-being is our highest priority. One of our major advantages as a financial advisory firm is the advisory group's team, what we like to refer to as our TAG team. We are proud of our TAG team and the high quality service we all provide. You may notice some new photographs here. Our TAG team keeps growing. Once again, here is our information for you to reach us. We are glad to be of service, and please reach out to us if you have any questions, comments, or want to meet with us. We hope you have a wonderful day and a great year. Happy, healthy, safe, secure, and prosperous. Thank you.